Welcome back, beautiful souls, seekers of healing, truth, and transformation. Today, we are going into a story older than civilization, older than patriarchy, older than written scripture. The story of two women, Lilith and Eve, one demonized, one domesticated, but both misunderstood. And in their stories lies a blueprint for the rise of the unbreakable woman. Stay with me, this may be one of the most important teachings you'll ever hear. Today we are exploring mythology, psychology, and the ancient narratives that still shape the way modern women see themselves. Lilith, Eve, two names whispered through thousands of years of cultural memory. Women who were said to be made from man, or rebelling against man, or cursed because of desire, or punished for daring to choose. But when we step deeper into the psychological, historical, and symbolic layers, something extraordinary emerges. These two women are not rivals. They represent the two halves of the feminine psyche. The half society rewards and the half society fears. Let's begin. The lost story of Lilith, the woman who would not bow. Before Eve, there was another woman, Lilith, found in ancient Hebrew texts older than Genesis as we know it. In the earliest accounts, Lilith was created from the same earth as Adam, equal, unsubmissive, uncompromising. But here's the psychological piece. Lilith refused to lie beneath Adam, not just physically, but symbolically. She refused hierarchy, she refused erasure, she refused to diminish herself to maintain peace. And for that refusal, she was labeled dangerous, unruly, uncontrollable, a threat. What happens to a woman who insists on equality in a world built on obedience? History turns her into a monster. But beneath that distortion lies the archetype of the sovereign feminine, the part of a woman who says, I will not shrink so you can feel big. I will not silence myself to keep the peace. I was made equal, and I will live equal. Lilith represents every woman who has ever been punished for being too strong, too sexual, too outspoken, too independent, or simply too much. The woman who chose knowledge. Now let's shift to Eve, the woman we're told caused the downfall of humanity. But look at this story again with a psychological lens. Eve didn't choose sin, she chose knowledge, curiosity, agency. She wanted to understand, to question, to grow beyond the limits placed on her. And for that hunger for wisdom, she was called the cause of all suffering. But in many mystical traditions, including the Kabbalah, Eve is not the villain. She is the initiator of human consciousness. The woman who chooses awakening over comfort, expansion over obedience, growth over stagnation. Eve represents the nurturing feminine, the part of a woman who loves, learns, adapts, creates life, and brings compassion into the world. She is not weak, she is transformative. Lilith and Eve, two sides of the female psyche. Here is where the power unfolds. Lilith and Eve are not in opposition. They are a pair, two essential forces. Lilith is boundaries, Eve is connection. Lilith says, no, Eve says, let me understand. Lilith protects the self, Eve nurtures others, and a woman collapses when she is forced to choose one over the other. A woman who lives only in her Eve becomes self-sacrificing, silenced, and worn down. A woman who lives only in her Lilith becomes isolated, guarded, and unable to trust. But the unbreakable woman, she is the integration of both. She is Lilith's fire and Eve's compassion held in one body. She is tender but not weak, loving but not self-abandoning, strong but not hardened, independent but not unreachable. She is the woman society fears and the woman the world desperately needs. Let's be honest. No system built on dominance benefits from a woman who is both wise and uncompromising, compassionate and powerful, loving and sovereign. A woman who can think for herself and stand her ground cannot be molded or manipulated. So patriarchy did something very strategic. It split the feminine in half. It turned Lilith into a demon, the warning of what happens to a woman who refuses to bow. It turned Eve into a cautionary tale, the example of what happens when a woman desires knowledge or agency. And then it taught generation after generation of women. Be like Eve, obedient, pleasing, self-sacrificing, and never ever be like Lilith. But here is the truth every woman must reclaim. You were born with both energies. You rise when you reclaim both energies. Patriarchy never feared weak women. It feared whole women. Because a whole woman, confident, conscious, and complete, cannot be controlled. The modern woman living in the split. Today, that ancient split between Lilith and Eve still lives inside modern women. You see it in women who love deeply but cannot set boundaries without feeling guilty. Women who set boundaries but then shame themselves for having needs. Women who succeed in their careers but feel disconnected or unseen in their relationships. Women who give endlessly yet rarely receive the same support in return. Women who silence their truth to keep peace, and women who fear being too much and not enough at the exact same time. These wounds aren't personal failures. They are the psychological inheritance of a world that forced women to choose between strength and softness, between voice and harmony, between Lilith and Eve. But when you integrate both, you become whole. You become clear. You become aligned. You become unbreakable. How to reclaim Lilith, your untamed strength. To reclaim your Lilith energy, you begin by asking yourself, where am I shrinking just to stay acceptable? Where am I silencing myself to keep the peace? Where am I tolerating disrespect because I'm afraid of losing love? And where do I feel powerful yet ashamed of that power? Lilith teaches a different truth. You are allowed to take up space. You are allowed to say no without apologizing. You are allowed to walk away from anything that asks you to abandon yourself. You are allowed to choose your dignity over someone else's comfort. Lilith is the fire in your spine and the truth rising in your throat. She is not against love. She is the guardian of your self-worth inside love. And without her presence, without her fierce and sacred boundaries, you cannot stay whole. How to reclaim Eve, your wise, loving heart. To reclaim your Eve energy, ask yourself gently, where do I give out of genuine love and where do I give out of fear? Where do I soothe others while quietly abandoning my own needs? Have I mistaken self-sacrifice for virtue? And where am I afraid to grow because I fear being judged or blamed for it? Eve offers a deeper truth. Compassion is not weakness. Growth is not betrayal. Curiosity is sacred. And wisdom, deep, intuitive, feminine wisdom has always been your birthright. Eve is the warmth in your chest, the softness in your hands, the part of you that knows how to nurture without losing yourself. She is not humanity's downfall. She is humanity's awakening. And without her presence, your strength becomes armor instead of connection. Integration, the birth of the unbreakable woman. An unbreakable woman is not hardened. She is not guided. She is not cold or emotionless. She is integrated. She knows when to call on Lilith and say, no, not again, not like this. I deserve more. And she knows when to call on Eve and say, I choose connection. I choose growth. I choose compassion, but never at the cost of myself. This integration is not rebellion. It is a return to the ancient wholeness patriarchy feared, that religion distorted, that culture tried to erase. The unbreakable woman is not a modern creation. She is the original blueprint. The woman before distortion, before division, before fear. She is the woman every girl remembers being before she was ever taught to shrink. Lilith teaches you your value, the part of you that knows you are worthy simply because you exist. Eve teaches you your purpose, the part of you that grows, nurtures, and brings wisdom into the world. Lilith gives you your voice, the courage to speak truth even when your voice trembles. Eve gives you your compassion, the openness that allows love to move through you without erasing you. Lilith protects your boundaries, Eve protects your relationships. And a woman becomes truly unbreakable when she lives from truth rather than conditioning. When she stops choosing between her fire and her tenderness and becomes whole instead of fragmented. This is not rebellion, this is reunion. A homecoming, a return to the self you were always meant to be. Thank you for spending this time with me. I'm Nori, and this is my AI twin sister, Nora, walking with you through mythology, psychology, and the rise of the sovereign, healed, whole woman. If something in this video stirred your soul, if a truth clicked into place, or if you felt even a hint of awakening within you, please like, share, and subscribe. It truly helps this message reach the women who need it. And tell us in the comments, which part of you is rising right now, Lilith or Eve? And what does becoming an unbreakable woman mean to you today? Because you, beautiful soul, were never meant to be small, you were meant to be whole. And a woman who is whole, mind, heart, body, and spirit cannot be broken.